Welcome back, y'all. Welcome back. Today, I have 4 book reviews for y'all. 4 books, and I like them all. Let's just get started. First, we have Hue and Cry. This one, I'm not the biggest short story person, but I did enjoy these. They're raw, gritty. It's one of James Allen McPherson's earlier works. They talk a lot about race and class, especially in America. Talk a lot about the different cultures, and talks a lot about identity and sexuality as well. But like, there's some that like, I liked all the short stories, but the ones that really stood out to me, I really liked Gold Coast. I really liked A Matter of Vocabulary, and I really liked A Solo Song for Doc. I like all of them, but those I really liked. And if you like short stories, I'll definitely recommend this. It was good. This is the first book I've ever read from James Allen McPherson. Won't be the last though. But I realized while reading this why I don't really like short stories. Like, I do, I'll read them, but I can't, like, it's just like a snack. It's like, it's not enough for me to like really sink my teeth into. Like, even the short stories that I really liked, I wanted more. I'm like, it's good, but it's like a teaser. It's like an appetizer. And it just didn't feel like the full meal. Which is good. I mean, it's a short story. You know, what more do you want? But I did enjoy it. It was good. My first book by him. If you've read this, what do you think? Do y'all like short stories? I don't dislike them. I'm just always like I like what comes with full-length novels. I just do. But I still read short stories here and there. This is probably my second or third short story collection this year. I don't gravitate towards them often, but I really did want to read some of his work. And so I had this one on the shelf and picked it up. Next. I read this book on a road trip, actually. They Were Her Property, White Women as Slave Owners in the American South. This book right here was very interesting and telling. This author's whole point of this book was to shed light on the white woman's involvement, role, and how they benefited in the American slavery system. How a lot of times when we think about slavery in America, we almost absolve the white women who took part in it, who benefited from it, who were gifted slaves from their parents, who were at these markets and were at these auctions that we typically only see white men portrayed as. We forget about how they were in their homes and the treatment that they directly gave to their slaves, and so many other things. And that's what this book is about. It's about being fair with how we what's the word I'm looking for? Divide up accountability. Being fair with not like just letting them off the hook almost. Like, we want to see them as like, oh, they were helpless and they went along with it. And it's never been explicitly stated like that. But there has, in my opinion, been an undertone of like, they were just going along because they had to, or they were just kind of there. But this really shows how they benefited and how they even directly like led some of these things, how they were masters of their own plantations too. And how that set them up as well, you know. So it was hard to read. This is a book that I tried to read this a couple years ago, and I got like 10, 15, maybe 20% in. I wish I would have marked where I got to. I might have got right past the second chapter the first time I read it, and I was not in the space to read it at the time. But I was stuck in the car for hours upon hours upon hours recently, and decided this was a good time to read this. What better time to read it while traveling through the American South from coast to coast? What better time? So that's what I did. I read this. I actually read it on my Kindle. Yeah, because that's where I originally read it. But yeah, it was telling. I learned about, this is like actual, it's a nonfiction book, and it has like historical accounts of legit like recorded women who intentionally tried to like fly under the radar and not have many things in records to kind of prove their involvement in a lot of stuff. But there's still evidence, of prominent white women that were involved, and then evidence of not so prominent. So you have real stories woven in there. You have research woven in there. You have interviews, woven in there. So I enjoyed it, not in the sense of it was an enjoyable read, but it was very, very informative. And to me, like, it's like, that collectively, like, you collectively know who was involved and who was responsible and who was accountable and who benefited. But you almost want to, like, I can't think of another word but absolve. Like, you almost want to cut them a little bit of slack and feel like, oh, they had to. Like, they had no choice. But not really. Like, but when you think about it, you think of harsh, white, Southern men that was just doing all this stuff. And really, this kind of, it shows that it was both. It was both. So, yeah, read that. Next, let me do this one. A Story of Friendship and Betrayal, Zora and Langston. This book took me longer to read than it should, to be honest. I was struggling making it through this book. I got a lot of notes in this book, and not because it was a lot of stuff that I didn't know, but just because I don't know, like, it just inspired me to write a whole lot of stuff about what I was reading in here. Like, probably 80% of these pages are marked in. I have notes in the margins because, first of all, what I got from this title, A Story of Friendship and Betrayal, I feel like it's not really what I got while reading it. I got a good idea through letters and through like some other historical accounts of a lot of writers and editors during the Harlem Renaissance time. A lot of influential black editors and writers and poets and short storyists, during this time. And it would, like, yes, it was focused on Zora and Langston, but not in the way that I thought. And when I read Betrayal, in the title, I was thinking like, oh, this is about to be, go on to something else. And I wouldn't say betrayal is a word I use for like the conflict that happened in this book. It was basically two people who had a lot in common and had a lot of shared interests and common interests and goals, but had a fundamentally different view of what was problematic and they had the same goals in general, but like the means to get there was very, very different. The way that they thought you should express that was very different. And almost their value system was pretty different. What I wasn't expecting in this book is that it talks a lot about like their sexuality of like a lot of people in here. And I don't know why I wasn't expecting that, but I wasn't. And so I was like, damn, we talk about somebody else's sexuality. I don't think I was expecting it because of what I initially thought by the title going in. Like, I'm like, how many people's sexuality do we need to talk about and for how long? But I learned some things I didn't know about Zora, learned some things I didn't know about Langston. And while reading this, I realized, which is why I had so many notes, I didn't know much about them, period. Even the work that I've read of theirs, I didn't know much about how it was developed, what kind of space they were in when they wrote it, what might have inspired it. And then it was good to get the idea that I got of Langston Hughes because almost who he was as a person showed up in his work. Same with Zora Neale Hurston. But some of the stuff they were describing him as and some of the things they were talking about his life, I could see that reading his poems and short stories, and I could see that on the page. So that was cool to me. So yeah. Lastly, we have a poetry collection. This is a reread because one of my goals for 2025 was to reread some of my favorites. And this seemed like the perfect time to do a reread of Nappy Edges. This book, and I've actually talked to somebody recently who hated this poetry collection. And, you know, I understood where she came from. She said, you know, she could tell it was one of her earlier works and it seemed a little disjointed. To me, it was good. I mean, I love like the infusion of jazz and, you know, culture during the time that it was written. I loved the conversations that it sparked about language and identity in writing and literature and poetry. The same way you kind of have that like cultural sense or like identity in music, like specifically jazz and some pop music in there. But the same way you can tell that's Whitney Houston singing, you know, the same way you can tell, oh, that's Coltrane. The same way you can tell those things, like there's a sound to writing as well, to literature. And, you know, I just thought it was so interesting. I've read this before and I like it. Like, I don't know. She has her own way of writing poetry and it's very reminiscent of like her style. It's very much like what's on the page. She's almost like giving you the message of having an identity on a page. Like you can read this and tell a black woman wrote this and who it is. And why is that wrong? Like, why do we want almost like this, almost it's like conformity when it comes to literature. So I just thought, again, it was a reread. I knew I was going to like it. And I just was in the mood to reread it. I was like, you know, I like that when I enjoyed reading that. And it's probably been 10, 15 years or something. I can't even remember when I read it, but I remember reading it and I enjoyed it. And I got this initially from a Goodwill, like years and years and years ago. And so, yeah, I have this. So good. It was so like, it's like watching a movie that you know you love growing up and you got to watch it again and you just felt everything that you felt the first time, but you can pick up on stuff that you didn't pick up on before. It was great. It was great. Great. That's it for today, y'all. Real quick. These 4 books, I enjoyed them all. My favorite of the bunch, I already knew it was going to be Nappy Edges. If I had to choose, that's the order I'm putting this in. I would probably put Hue and Cry second. Then They Were Her Property. And then Zora and Langston last. All good. So it's not that any of them are bad, but that would just be how I would rank them as far as like the enjoyability of reading them. So yeah. If you've read any of these, let me know in the comments, y'all. And if you have any of these on your TBR, I feel like all of these are really good books to read. Just make sure you're in the right headspace to read.